Okay, right. Welcome everyone, and welcome to the first compassion check-in. And I'm really so glad that you're here. It's a real pleasure for me that you're here. I'm just going to go through just some of the really boring housekeeping stuff, just that everyone knows their way around the system, just in case there's any problems or any tech problems. Then we can start. And thank you so much for that advice, Ryan. In terms of the background noise, I can see you're an expert at Zoom videos because we're now on mute. So thank you so much for that tip there. So just to say, we're here on Zoom. You have got right at the bottom of your computer, there's a range of controls, particularly the mute one and your video. If you want to stop your video for any reason, you can do that. And you can see there's a sidebar with chat. So if you've got any questions or anything that you're wanting to share, please do type anything in the sidebar at any particular time. I've been on Zoom over the last couple of days, and I've noticed that there's probably lots and lots of people coming online. So there is a faint chance that we might crash. If the call crashes, then just click back on via then just click back on via the link. And those of you who've just joined us, Iris and everyone else who's joined us, I'm going to invite you to just put yourself onto mute. So if you can, and so if you can just pop yourself on mute. And I was just going through a little bit of the housekeeping. And in fact, what I'm going to do just for a second as I continue that, I'm going to mute all. But if you can put yourself onto mute, and then I'll unmute you in a minute. Okay. Welcome everybody. I was just saying that if by chance the technology crashes, all you need to do is go back into the link that you clicked on, and then we'll be back again. We're actually recording this because I really wanted us to be able to share today with anybody else who might find today really, really useful. And I've just changed the view so you can see everybody who's on the call. So welcome everybody. And I can see Rob's keen to know, do I know any of these people? I wondered if I just wondered if we might want to start by, I want to invite you to just type in, if you could, what's brought you here today. If you just want to type in what's brought you here onto this call today. And I'm very, very grateful for your time, by the way. So in that chat bar, I'm looking forward to seeing what you're. That's very, very kind. Yeah. Thanks, Rob. Yeah, it's very nice to be in demand. Thanks, Leigh. I agree. Yeah, it is a really special time for connecting and kindness. Let's see what everyone else is typing. Oh, Rob, yeah, absolutely love. Yeah, now is certainly a time for love. I also wonder, Iris and David and let's see, a typical bit of rash perspective. We'll try and bring that. And Iris, yeah, I love hearing and talking in these times. Yeah, having a great inspiring person. Well, you're one of them. You are one of them. And David, yeah, we must all unite to be a force for good. Yeah, I think that's this particular time. Wow. Oh, I've got somebody else who's coming along. My very, very dear neighbour, artist Leslie, welcome. And you should have a mute button. In fact, I've muted you all for now. So what I'm going to do is that if, just a couple of house rules for today, if there's anything that you're wanting to say at any particular time, then please do type it in. If you're wanting to kind of share and contribute, then just put your hand up and then let's talk and let's share. This is the very, very first aha. Are you ready to share, Stuart? Or are you just checking on the settings? Yeah. So I am going to. So what I thought what might be quite nice for us to begin to do is actually to start with a little bit of silence. And I'm very mindful at the moment. There's quite a lot of noise going on in the world. So I wanted to just invite us just to take just 2 minutes of just silence, of being just very, very still. You might want to close your eyes. I'm going to have mine open just in case there are people who are joining the call. You might just want to just be still. But I'm just going to invite us just to take those 2 minutes of silence. Wow. Wow, that's beautiful. It's beautiful. That was a really rich silence. And I just noticed that, Salma, you've got your hand up, and I'm wondering, Salma, is there anything you wanted to ask or share? Otherwise, you can just message me personally. I just wanted to find out if you had a question that you wanted to kind of share. Aha, Salma's not got a question. Okay. Well, first of all, I just want to again just thank you all for being here, and I just really wanted us to start off with silence. Today really is a bit of an experiment. On the one hand, it's really just an opportunity to do all the things that you've talked about, just for us to be, for us to come together, to share love, to show, I guess, camaraderie. And I'm very, very mindful that we find ourselves in really, really unique times wherever we are. Now, I happen to be lucky enough to know many of you here, and I know that we've got people on the call from London, in Australia, in Spain, in Israel. It's just really incredible, all parts of the world. And I think that's magical. And I could just see, Iris, I could just see that beautiful smile. Iris, I want to just turn to you, if I might. I just wonder if there's anything you want to say or share, and please do feel to unmute yourself. I will probably, throughout this call, just invite anyone who wants to share, and if anyone wants to share either a question or say anything, just raise their hand. But Iris, from what I remember, and I remember when we met a while ago, you told me just a little bit about your extraordinary journey, and I just wondered if there's anything you want to just say at all. And just to kick us off, I'd welcome anything that you might have to say.
That's quite difficult.
Oh, and I think you're muted. Are you? Have you got your microphone on? I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
So.
Oh, I don't know what's going on.
So we should be able to hear you, Iris, if there's anything you want to say. No, it might be that I just can't hear you.
My God, gee!
So yeah, Iris, yeah. Anything you wanted to share?
Just working it out.
Okay, and now we'll come back to you. I want to just turn to, sound problems. Okay, sorry about that, Iris, we'll come back to you. I want to just turn to Leigh. I wonder if you might be able to wave for us. Yeah, Leigh, thank you so much for joining us. Leigh, I know, Leigh, you run retreats. Red Lotus, you are the director of the Red Lotus project. We run retreats. You run retreats for women, for people of all backgrounds, to help people find inner peace. I wonder if there's anything that you just want to say and just to share as we begin, because I really wanted to invite you onto this call because you've known what it's like to go through all sorts of challenging times throughout your personal life, your professional life, and you work with people often when they need to go on retreat, often when there's been challenges, trauma, and so on. I wonder if there's anything that you want to say, and I know that you're today, you're in Barcelona, which is one of the places where there's complete lockdown at the moment. I wonder if there's anything you might want to just share with us right now. And I think you might need to unmute yourself. You just need to unmute yourself.
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Oh, wonderful.
Well, hi, everybody from all corners of the world, it seems. So I'm originally a South African, and I'm living in Barcelona at the moment with my husband. And it's been such an interesting time. I came from Nepal before coming back to Barcelona, and obviously a lot of this started in China through these challenging times. Now we're in Barcelona, and it's just kind of exploded here. So it's been a journey to see what people are going through online, people who are connected to many of the women in our groups. And I guess the biggest, as I was speaking to Rasheed earlier this morning, and I guess at this time one feels almost compelled to be able to support others and to be able to share with others. And coming from a country that faces a lot of challenges, South Africa, and just so many places in the world where people are going through a lot of hardship, this is actually a real opportunity for people to come together and to share kindness and to offer support and really connect to our humanness, our fragility at this time, our vulnerability at this time, but also the joy of being able to be alive and to cherish that. So I think that's really is also taking, having a lot of gratitude and appreciation for being alive and really cherishing that, making good use of this time and space. So
yeah.
that's what I want to share.
And Leigh, could I just ask one last, just very quick question to start with? Is there anything that you're noticing that's different right now when you are, because I understand that the circumstances there that you know, that it's forced isolation, people can't leave their house, I think, apart from very strict situations. Is there anything that you're noticing in yourself that's different from when you often go on retreat yourself? Is there anything that's different? Are you finding it different? Are you finding it more difficult? I just wonder for all of us who are here on this call.
In a way, for me personally, I've spent a lot of time in retreat and in a kind of remote and isolated places. So in a way, I feel kind of blessed to have this time and opportunity to have some space. I know that that's not the case for everybody, that some people find that really challenging. But I think an invitation for anybody who is, becoming a little bit, has a bit of cabin fever or feels a bit restricted in many ways, is to make friends with yourself and to make peace with the situation, because I think fighting it and having resistance to this just creates a lot of self confrontation and frustration in ourselves. So I think really just being able to relax within it, I think that's the best feeling. And I mean, myself, I go through it too. We live very close to the ocean and I'm a big ocean lover. So now we're in forced isolation and I've really literally been out for 2 minutes to put some garbage out. So kind of snuck a peek at the ocean. But it's a time of some self-discipline, I think. And that's not a bad word. That's actually something that can bring us a lot of solace as well. So I think making peace with oneself, making peace with the situation and just relaxing into it.
Yeah, I wonder if anyone else wants to just share how they're finding it, if there's anything that that you want to share about that, because I think that here in London, for example, the circumstances are suddenly changing, on pretty much day by day. And so people over the last few days, 2 or 3 days, have found themselves in very much forced isolation, although not probably as forced as in some places. Anyone else want to just share about how they're finding it? Yeah, please, please, Dr. Martin, if you'll share with us.
I'm not entirely sure if I'm coming through by voice or if I have to text, but can you actually hear me?
Yeah.
Nice. Oh, Mark.
Loud and clear as always, Doctor.
Loud and clear as always. Okay. I think one of the things that's going to be very important for our sense of self-fulfillment and calm and achievement is to undertake uncompleted tasks. So if there are things that you've been working on that you haven't been able to complete, if there are things, oh, there's that wonderful novel that I wanted to write. I am a writer. There are assignments, there are work or reports that you have been working on. There are things, there's unfinished business. I think this is the perfect time to gather that together and decide which one of those uncompleted pieces of work that have been pending for longer than you want to admit, that needs to be done. And I think that could give you a really great sense of daily achievement, because so often we're unable to complete what we've started because work demands so much of us. I know that it does in my own life. And where I used to have to steal time away from work at the end of the day or during my lunch hour to actually complete new drafts of my novel, whatever it is that I'm doing, I think now is the absolute perfect time to go to the things that you really want to do and the things that you think, oh God, I'd love to do that, I really want to do that, but all of these other things intercede, they intervene, they disrupt, and they tear you away. Well, now you have no excuse. You can just do it at your own pace, in your own way, with a real feeling of accomplishment and achievement and great pride. There's nothing quite as wonderful as completing something that you started and knowing that I've done it now. And I think that that could alleviate a great deal of stress.
Very, very powerful. I could see some nods. I wonder if anyone else wanted to share or join. Yeah, please, Iris. Oh, now the audio for a moment is
Hi, everybody.
We can hear you. Hi.
Okay. I think I was a bit silly before because I had my telephone and I transferred to the computer and I forgot to put the audio in the computer. So it's me and technology working well again. I like what Dr. Martin said, and I actually am applying that in my life quite, at the moment. Rasheed was talking before, I am self-employed, and that some time ago I had a diagnosis that made me change my life completely. So I went for some time not working because I said, well, I don't need the money, not because I'm rich. I don't need the money because my life would be limited. So why would I accumulate money? And then after some time I said, okay, I have to go back to work because I am happier when I am working. So it just happens that I have cystic fibrosis. So I am one of the vulnerable people with COVID. So whilst other people are in isolation now, I actually started my process in January by advice of my doctors, because they said, do not travel. My work involves a lot of traveling. And they said, well, if you can avoid, and we are not going to tell you not to do because we know that you have to work, do not travel. And one of the things that I'm finding most comforting, and I don't know if that is even sensible to say that, is the fact that now I can do all the things that I want, do the transition to the new sort of business that I want to have, and I don't have the pressure to do everything within the free time that I have of doing something else. And I know some of my friends are getting completely mad because they've been at home for 3 days. And then I think, come on, just test your resilience. And it's not that I'm happy with COVID, but I'm making the most of it. And I'm doing things like I'm doing now. I am trying to hear people that inspire me, because I just believe that that's what we need now. It's just like surround yourself with something positive, because then there is always someone worse than yourself. And, I'm sure that you've heard something a lot worse than what I'm telling. And, because I don't feel like I have the worst case, I make the most of everything. Yeah, I am an optimistic person. So, yeah, so I mean, that's the only thing that I want to say. For me, I'm using this time to test my resilience and adaptability, which in my business is very important.
What is your business? Just that we know, and then I'm going to turn to David, and Stuart's made also an important point.
Well, I work as my hobby, that is a business as well. My second business, I am a conference interpreter. So I work a lot in Brussels, and I also have a market research company. And I want to transition to a business where I actually work with people and talk about the business, do international business, because that's what I do, and inspire them to start their own business, because my story is not exactly, in theory, I do not suppose to have achieved what I achieved in life, because I'm not exactly the right profile. But I think that I've done a lot. If it wasn't for me to change my life, I would have had all the money that I wanted, because I was on target to get it 5 years late, but I was getting it. So I just want, to inspire people like myself. By the way, I am from Brazil. So the accent, if you haven't understood my English, is because I'm not from here.
Oh, well, wonderful. Well, we've got such a wonderful international group. Dr. David Greenberg, we've got quite a few doctors here. I could see that your hand up, and I just want to acknowledge also the point that you made, Stuart, just before I turn to David. Stuart, you're making this point about how there's so much, I guess, misinformation and so on at the moment. And I just wondered if there's anything you wanted to say, but I also wonder, one of the things that struck me about the conversations that we've had, and I don't know how much you're happy to share about this, but you've been in a situation where you've had to stay in. So you had a little bit of an advantage on some of us. I wonder if there's anything you wanted to say about that, Stuart, just before I turn to Dr. David.
Well, I'm actually living in Sydney, Australia at the moment. We're not on lockdown at the moment, but I'm British and the Australians are just freaking out. I mean, we're so far away from Europe and we're sort of looking to Europe and we're seeing what's going on. And I think for a good few weeks, a lot of Australians thought it's not going to happen to us because we're so far away. And I think it's just starting to hit home now that it's going to affect us as well. And there just seems to be mass confusion. And with all the fake news intertwined with all that, it's just quite frightening, to be honest with you, what's going on socially. I've never seen anything like it over here.
And how
scary times.
And how are you settling into this? And have there been much limitations in terms of what people can do? Because I don't know how much you're prepared to share. You've had to, isn't it, in a way, had not been able to move around as much as everybody else. I wondered if you wanted to say anything about that, because lots of us for the first time are finding ourselves in lockdown.
Yeah, well, I actually broke my leg, unfortunately, when I was visiting the UK last year. So I flew back to Sydney and obviously I couldn't move around. I was housebound. So I was in self-isolation. So it's almost like I've got to go through the whole thing again. So in some ways I'm quite lucky because mentally I've gone there before. So it's not going to be so tough for me, but it is a adjustment, because if you're active and you've got your routine and you've got your job and you're mixing with people, and then all of a sudden you have to stop all that. It takes a while to digest that and, you know, bring in the changes, and not everybody's good at doing that. So I think this whole thing that you're saying about being mindful is very important.
Yeah.
At this time.
And I can see that.
And being taught it.
Yeah, and I can see that Rob's really agreeing with that. Dr. David, I wonder if there's anything that you wanted to share, and then I'm going to come back to Rob and wonder if you just want to share something on that. Dr. David Greenberg, I wonder if you could wave to us, and I think you're in Tel Aviv at the moment, is that right?
Close, I'm in Jerusalem.
Oh.
I wanted to, first of all, it's really nice to hear everyone's kind of inner thoughts and their inner lives, who, like on the call, who is sharing and kind of being with us in their presence. I wanted to extend something that Dr. Martin had brought up about the idea of finishing what you start. And what immediately came to mind is that once you do finish something, it creates an opening and a space. And it, being in Jerusalem, it reminded me of some Kabbalistic teachings about the creation of the universe, which is that the story in its simplicity goes that it's actually similar to the Big Bang, but the creator first created an opening in a space, that an infinite being had to create a space, something that was finite within. And I think that as creatives, whenever we do begin a project, it's important to have that space that's there. So what Dr. Martin said, I think is really appropriate for right now, is that when we finish something, that we create that space within ourselves. And then what I thought about after that is that, well, what do we do with that space? And I think that there's really two things that we can do, in what kind of the world is calling and the situation is calling for us as individuals and as a society to do. And I think one of those things is really to do some deep inner work, that this is an opportunity where we're neither in fight or flight, but we are in freeze. And I think the tendency could be to freeze at home and kind of do nothing. And I think that it's important to take the opportunity and to go inside, and also was mentioned in terms of about fake news and this battle, really, I think, between fear and love, and this duality consciousness that our world has kind of been consumed in for the past how many years. And I think it's an opportunity to really fight and overcome that, and to open our hearts and open ourselves to compassion and to the world, both on an individual level, but I think then also on a much broader level, is to really, with that space that we have inside, is to really think about our social responsibility and what we can do right now to unite people and to bring people together. Because whether it's in a few weeks or a few months or half a year or a year and a half, the world that we re-enter to is going to be vastly different from the one that we know now and from what we have known. And I think that what we do in these months as individuals and as a society together will determine what that future looks like. So that, yeah, that's what I wanted to share with everyone.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, that thing about the world that we might walk back into, and a couple of people have touched on this. Rob, I wonder if there's anything that you might want to share other from the things that you've commented on, or anything else. And I know that you're a trainer. Also, you've had a long history as a civil servant. So I guess you've also got quite an interesting perspective on some of the things that might well be going on, I guess, right now, in terms of, I guess, also lots of governments are probably wrestling with all sorts of things right now, and lots of people are working in government. I just wondered if there's anything you want to just share, because I always know from having known you, everything that you share is rich. So I just wonder where your thoughts are at right now and what you might want to share.
Well, firstly, thank you, Rash. Thanks for the invitation, and thank you to all of this community, this new set of connections that have shared so openly here. I do want to start by just echoing what I heard, is it Dr. Greenberg before me, talking about in respect of open hearts. I agree with the previous comments about finishing tasks. I think the biggest point I wanted to weave in at this point was the realization that I have about we were never, as a world, as a global community, whilst ever more connected through technology and other ways of communicating, we were never ever in the same space. We were never at the same point. And I think this opportunity to exercise empathy for ourselves, empathy for others, which is perhaps the truest form, but also empathy and understanding around the views and the ways in which views are expressed, both politically and through leadership. You mentioned there, Rash, about some of the issues that we're wrestling with as arms of the government today, certainly in the UK. It's being labelled as a leadership in crisis. It's being labelled as a need for us to collaborate more, work together more. And I think the thing on my heart most of all is just how much the virus itself is no respecter of class. It's no respecter of wealth. It's no respecter of nation or nationality, race or gender. This is a virus that will visit any of us, and it's something to bring to the fore of our minds as we take action to both reduce the number of illnesses, the number of deaths, and how we prepare for a world beyond COVID-19, how we articulate a vision beyond COVID-19, keeping a hold of the normality, keeping a hold of what's true, but understanding that it will be our ability and capacity to exercise empathy and that open heartedness that I heard Dr. Greenberg speak of just before that will help us. Knowing that we were never in the same space before we came into this moment, we have been thrusted into the same space, or at least thinking about the same space now, but we are in different places still. And I think when we understand more of that, I think is when we begin to make wiser decisions about how we move forward and move to the next state, the best possible place that we can occupy. Really,
Really powerful point there, Rob. So many things that jump out for me from that. I think that there is that thing about the ball being in the same space. Isn't it magical that a number of us from different parts of the world are all in the same space here right now? And during the unfolding of this situation that we're in, I suddenly realized that I had friends and contacts and colleagues all over the world, in Spain, Australia, in America, in Israel, in all sorts of places. You know, I was just thinking this morning about four or five continents. I thought, wow, and who I'm conversing with, having conversations with, and who were telling me what was going on, broadly speaking, and so on, where they were. And as you say, Rob, it's interesting that something's come along that's thrust us all into the same space. Now, I guess that some people will be lucky that they've got a little bit more of an incubator, perhaps, from this. Perhaps they've got a big house perhaps they happen to have a big bank balance to give them some comfort during these particular times, although some I'm sure will be very concerned about what stocks and shares are doing right now at the moment, and so on. But yet but we do find ourselves in this shared space and shared situation, and there's this opportunity, isn't there? This thing about when we come out of the other end, hopefully, that things will be different, and there's that opportunity to be different. And there's that phrase that comes up to me, that responsibility, the ability to respond, perhaps in a different kind of way and connect in a different way, more heartfully, more compassionately. I mean, I've been really touched by some of the things that I've seen people do. You know, I happen to live here in a shared community. There's somebody that's amazing who is in that shared community who's on the call now, and people are helping each other and supporting each other. People are going out doing shopping and set up things like WhatsApp groups and so on. There's all sorts of beautiful things that people are doing, and I think that's really important. And I guess we're hearing little bits of that. I just hope it's a huge opportunity for us to be doing more of that, and for us to really be asking ourselves, you know, what is working and what's not. Somebody was telling me also some really interesting things. One of my dearest friends who lives in the countryside, I think, said to me, have you noticed also that lots of nature is recovering? As the humans are having to go indoors, apparently, I don't know that there's, you know, ecologically, that there's lots kind of going on. So that's very, very interesting. So I guess there's lots for us to chew over, isn't there? Whilst we are in isolation, whilst it can be very, very challenging and so on, there is that to be considered. I wonder if anyone's got any thoughts about that, or if anyone's thoughts are perhaps nearer and more present about worrying about loved ones and dear ones and so on. I'm just going to have a look through some of the comments here whilst just in case anyone's got anything to share. I could see Dr. David, is there anything you wanted to add? And Iris, I could see that you both had raised comments there. I wonder if there's anything that either of you want to share at this particular moment. In which case, I wonder, Darren, you're on the call. Darren, you're a lawyer, and your work particularly is helping people where they've had challenges that they're going to need to make claims on and so on. I just wonder from your perspective of somebody who kind of helps people in really challenging times, is there anything that you want to say or share at this particular moment? Anything that you've noticed in terms of where people are at? And I know that you're in the shade there, maybe if you can wave at us. I just wonder if there's anything that you want to share at this particular moment. Oh, and if you are speaking, I can't hear you. So if there is anything you want to share.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, I can hear you now.
Yeah.
I'm waved to everyone. So
hello, I'm Darren. I think the way law is practiced will never be the same again. A lot of lawyers are now working from home. They've got the technology, they've got the space either from their kitchen table or a home bedroom or a home spare office. But certainly tonight I'm doing my legal advice surgery. Normally that is in a place where I have to meet them face to face, but I'm doing Skype and Zoom. So it's still going ahead, it's not cancelled, but through the technology, it's still enabling people to come to me with any problems and I can give them the advice. I think going forward, using things like card machines rather than you know, the way lawyers are paid now generally by check or by payment on account, cash or whatever. I think this whole coronavirus will change and revolutionize the way legal practice is done, certainly in England and Wales. But that's my thoughts on it. But you asked me also about you know, how clients can be helped, and I think that's the way Skype, these comments, virtual chats. You may not need to go in to see a solicitor in their office in the future. It's getting that way at the moment, and I think this has really just moved it forward about 5 years forward. So,
yeah, that's a really important point. And Dr. Martin, and just before you come in there, Dr. Martin, I'm just curious about the one thing that has jumped up for me is that this is bringing up the one divide, isn't it, which is the technology divide. You know, those of us who have got the technology can connect in this kind of way. And I was just thinking before this call, if we're on this call, then at least we have some degree of comfort and support. And I was really touched by what you were saying before, Iris, because I think that sometimes, even many of us, we might have our own challenges. Sometimes these things do bring up, don't they? When we suddenly realize, hang on, I do have that, I've got a little bit of money in the bank, I've got some food in the fridge. And I do worry, for example, about those people who are homeless, or if things do go completely online, the people who just rely on other things. So that's just a thought that jumped out to me. I think that whilst this technology has made a jump, and there's that opportunity for things like social media to be used far more richly. It is, of course, already, but perhaps than it often is. I think we're also going to need to think about that thing about technology and where we are with technology. I wonder, Dr. Martin or Iris, did you want to come in, if anyone else wants to come in, if they might wave? Okay, Dr. Martin, please.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
Okay. I think one of the things that we can all think about, and particularly when you're at this stage of your life, and I'm at the upper stage of my life rather than the lower stage of my life.
I thought you were 25, Doctor.
Once upon a time. Yeah, rather than now. You know, having lived in Britain, and from the miners' strike through a 3-day week, through no electricity, through all sorts of social changes and social disadvantages, and what has impacted on the British public, I think one of the things that we don't always think of until we're sort of forced in a corner is thinking creatively about what we already have and how we can use it. So, you know, I think a lot of people, I don't know anyone that doesn't have a mobile phone. I mean, just everyone that I know. We can use that piece of technology to connect with each other and ask questions. Every single day, I send messages to my friends to say, how are you doing? How is everything? Can I help with anything? And so on. Even in, I live in a Georgian building, and there are 3 apartments in this building. And I created a little WhatsApp group between myself and the 2 women who live in the flats above me. And the person in the middle, she was feeling a little bit on a downward tilt. So I played some music and turned it up loud so that it could go through my ceiling and go into her apartment. And she was then texting me to say, you know, I feel trapped in my apartment, but I just love the fact that she's created a 15-minute disco dance music blast for me. So I played her Aretha Franklin and Shaka Khan and Debbie Harry, and just some music to give her an energy boost. And then she sent me the most wonderful text messages afterwards to say, good God, I really, really needed that. So I know that there are things that we can do. We have so much power within ourselves to actually empower and lift the energy and spirit from the people that we know. And we need to do that. Instead of just sending these idiotic text messages that mean nothing, think about what you can say to somebody to just lift them up. A message of, how are you? What are you doing? Is there anything, you know, if you have a car, can you drive by and drop something off? You know, if you're one of those people that have food also in bathroom cabinets, can you please share that food with somebody that's going to the shops and can find nothing on a shelf? Because, you know, by the time you get to eating the food that's in the bathroom, it could quite possibly rot. So share it with the people that you know who are going to supermarkets and finding empty shelves.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's more than food. There is nourishment of the soul and nourishment of the mind. Have a conversation with somebody. Don't just send them text messages. Get on the phone and talk to people. Because I find it very frustrating if you just, you know, I'm telling you that I'm thinking of you, and there's just these 5 words to say, you know, yo, pal, hope you're doing well. Why don't you call me, you son of a bitch, and actually have a conversation with me so that I feel the energy in your voice that then lifts me up. So the human element of using technology to actually intersect and interconnect at any intersection with people, I think is a vital way that we can help each other to stay buoyant and positive and make suggestions. You know, have you done this? I'm doing this. Share what you're doing in your house with the people that you know, and it just might spark an idea in them. It's like, you know, oh yes, I could do that.
I think that's a really such rich points there, isn't it? There's this thing about how needs must has forced, nudged us into connecting, sharing, helping, having to be creative. I like that point about having to be creative, and we're going to have to be creative with our lives. I wonder if, there's somebody who's on the call, I'm wondering if I might be able to persuade them to say a word or two. Leslie Hilling, I know that you're on the call, and I know that there's a number of things that you've been doing in terms of from a community perspective. And I'm just wondering if your audio's on, if you'd be happy just to share some of the things that you've been doing, because I think that they might, again, just give some thoughts and pointers. So if you can hear me on audio, and if you'll be happy to share, or if you'd be able to type anything in, I'd really love to hear anything that you might want to share if your audio is on. So if your audio is on, do just shout and we'd be able to hear you. But if not, well, in which case, but so what I wanted to share is that where I'm living, that again, there are people who, a bit like what you were saying there, Dr. Martin, there are some people they're setting up WhatsApp groups, little, groups, be it in their streets, between friends, sharing, people looking in on each other, and all of these things, which I guess for many people, particularly I guess in more rural communities, might say, well, hey, that's what we do all the time. So I guess particularly for those of us who are living in cities, it's forcing us to do some of those things. Is there anything anyone else wants to share that they've seen, if there's good things that they have seen of what people are doing, or trying to get ways of getting through this, or moving beyond this? Anything that anyone wants to share? Let's just see. Aha,
Rash, I just wanted to say something. I don't know if the same's happening over in the UK, but I thought the whole thing with allowing OAPs and people with disability first crack at going to the supermarket before all the stock had gone, I thought that was a really good idea.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said it. I think that's, I think that's such a good point you made, Stuart. It's showing some creativity, isn't it? Isn't it interesting? Some of these things that it's forcing us to think creatively. Are the people who are doing really important jobs that we could open, or we could do things for differently and help them? I mean, so I come up who's making that point about creativity. I think there's a few people, I think from Rob, things that David and Dr. Martin saying this thing about, there's an opportunity here, isn't there, for us to reshape society, albeit even if we may not completely be able to reconstruct society. We can certainly refurbish it, even if there isn't that demand, the readiness to completely redo that. I wonder if anyone's got any other thoughts on that in terms of where we are as a species. Leigh, actually, I want to turn to you actually at this moment, because you've had the most fascinating life. I don't know if you'd be happy to share a little bit about it, but from what I can gather from that story, and I hope you don't mind me sharing, but from a very, very young age, you were called on a journey to find self, which took you traveling all over the place, to India, through Asia, and exploring different ways of living and being and connecting more heartfully. I just wonder if you might share something a bit about what called you on that journey, and if there's anything that you've learned, or you think that there's that we can learn or consider from this, because I guess it's not easy for people who decide suddenly I'm going to go off and look at if there's a different way, a more fulfilling way of finding peace, of living differently, more richly, more compassionately. Anything you want to share there, Leigh?
I think the only, the thing that really comes to mind is how little we actually need as human beings. I think this kind of, when we put in a situation where we are forced to change things radically, it's amazing to see how few things we need to make us happy, and that all of the resources are really within ourselves. That, I remember being in retreats, it's probably about more than 10 years ago, living in a very remote little village in India. And we ran out of water. Well, I was doing retreat by myself, actually, and I ran out of water. And coming from South Africa, I've always been taught to be very, very mindful and very conscious of water, and, never wasting anything, even though I'm from a big city, Johannesburg. And when I didn't have water, I suddenly started to panic, and I thought, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? And I literally had about 6 liters left, and I had to kind of wash myself in some kind of way, but also to drink something. So you start, having a sense of panic. And at a moment, one of the young Tibetan refugees came. I don't know how she found me. She came to my door, and she'd carried 80 liters of water on her back. I don't know how she thought about me. I don't know what had happened, but she extended such a wonderful kindness to me. And I think that we underestimate how connected we are as human beings to each other, that we do actually see each other or recognize each other's presence, but we underestimate that in so many ways. And just, from the point of view of not having much, of having no water, and kind of, being down to literally last drop somehow, is really that really, really deep heart of gratitude, of how we take things for granted. Every time I have a shower, every time I do anything, I always appreciate that, because so that's such a blessing. I think all of these difficulties that people go through, or challenges, are actually really blessings for us to be able to make, lemonade out of lemons, kind of thing. So not to underestimate our capacity to be able to have very little and to achieve so much. And I really echo that, what Dr. Martin was saying about using this time in a precious way, really prioritizing what is really important, and letting all of the superfluous things go to the wayside, and really getting to the heart of what is really, really precious and really, really valuable to us.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for that sharing. I just think that's so powerful. Just today, it's funny you talk about showers. So taking a shower, and the shower head wasn't working properly. I was thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to call somebody, but the person I'm going to call, will they be able to come in because of what's going on? And I thought to myself, you're just so lucky to have this shower head. And I just twiddled something round and it was fine. I could balance it on something else for the time being, for the next few weeks or months. You know what I realized? You know what, Rasheed? It's fine. And I just wondered if, in our closing minutes, if there are any things that people might want to share that's been useful. Now I can see that, Rob, it seems like there's a paper that you've shared. I wonder if you might want to just tell us what, in a nutshell, that's about. I know that Dr. Martin, who is, music and film aficionado as well as a novelist, I can see that there's a DJ music club with Iris, so that they're going to be sharing music. These are lovely examples of some of the things that we can be doing. And I'm also wondering, Rai, I'm keen to turn to you, my friend. I'd love to know anything that you might want to share, if there's anything you might want to share about where you are or what you're doing, and so on. I'd just love to hear if there's anything that you might want to share, just before I turn to anyone else. If there's anything you want to share, I'd love to hear anything that you might want to share with us.
Yeah, hi everyone. I guess listening to lots of the comments, I actually came on the call to see how we could support our own doctors and nurses at the hospital where I'm working at the moment, because they're working really hard.
Which hospital are you at?
Guy's in St. Thomas's.
Guy's in St. Thomas's, yeah.
And it kind of just reminds me a little bit from the things that you're saying. We are. We are we've set up stalls where we're just taking in people's laundry, for example, and washing the scrubs and the uniforms and stuff like that, so they don't have to do that when they go home after a really busy day. We're working with the hotels around us that are really stepped up and are offering free accommodation, and even volunteering their staff to come and support the hospital in terms of how we can support the front line for keeping going, right through to just pick up a food parcel on your way out, so you don't have to go shopping, those sorts of things. And I was also, so they're all the kind of acts of kindness that are going on that kind of say, we kind of value you. And I was kind of wanting maybe to put a question out to this group in terms of the reason why I came on this call was very much about, you know, would this be of value to those healthcare workers that actually maybe are feeling a little bit vulnerable or just tired, or, you know, this is just the start of a really busy couple of weeks, and can I cope with it all? And you know, would it be a useful thing to maybe set up a call just to invite people to come along and share those things?
You know, I am so glad you're on this call. I can't tell you, I'm so glad you're on this call. I can't tell you how glad I am that you said what you said. Just this morning when I was speaking to Leigh before this chat, we were saying, weren't we, Leigh? We were having that little bit of conversation. I was wondering if I should make the next call, particularly also to invite the people who are healers and carers, be it they're medics, nurses, whatever, or therapists. I know some of you are therapists and healers, all sorts of people who are helping others. For me, ultimately, what my work is ultimately about is helping the healers and the leaders and teachers within the world doing their work. So anything that I could do, I'd be delighted to. So I'd be happy to have a chat with you offline, but I'd be happy, I'm very, very keen that perhaps that theme of next time, if everyone else was happy, is also for around those people who are helping and healing. What does everyone think about that? I mean, everyone is welcome, but I'd love to make that theme, particularly for those people who are wanting to help and to heal, because I think what you've said is really powerful. Dr. David, I wonder if there's something that you might want to say at that moment, because I know that you're a therapist and I know you're doing something around music and so on. I wonder if there's something you might share at that moment, because, and Rai, thank you so much for that, because it's just powerful and profound. So please do, you've got my details, do pick up on that, but I want to make next week's call on that. Dr. David.
Yeah, so I just wanted to comment briefly on like a combination of what Rob said and Dr. Martin said about empathy, and then also using kind of virtual means for communicating. And I think that oftentimes we've been reliant as a species many times to share empathy and to share communication and affection and love in a very kind of one-on-one interpersonal physical space. And I think that one of the things that was underlying what Dr. Martin said is that there's all these different opportunities to share empathy and connection with other people that are virtual. And it's almost forcing us to compensate for that limited physical reality and physical distance that we have. And I think that in that compensating, we're finding other ways to share kind of an energy and synergy between people, whether not having to be in the physical space, but also being miles, thousands of miles and continents away from each other. And I think that that will only really help us going forward. I mean, some of the work that I do in terms of my research is brain-to-brain synchrony and social neuroscience and looking at people become synchronized with each other. But I think that that can happen and be transmitted with one another from a very long distance. And you see that when people are singing and playing music together from balcony to balcony, or even over Zoom. And I think there's a lot, I think, of growth, and there's ways of that I'm being optimistic for the future and how that may manifest in even further ways that we haven't even thought of.
Yeah, very much so, very much so. So I think there's something what's coming through to me is that invitation for all of us as healers and so on, what could we be doing and how can we be supporting each other and what other ways can we enable? Can I just quickly, and before we close in a few minutes, Rai, have you got a thought about what would be, from your observation right now, what you feel would be useful for those people who are in hospitals and so on? What's your thought about that? Or is it something that you're just at that point of exploring?
I mean, at the moment, we're exploring it, because I mean, there's different, like someone commented in terms of systems, and we're all in different times, and different spaces. You know, some parts of the hospital are in greater need of others, and a lot of the kind of the well-being support is probably more needed in some areas than others. I guess the reason why I'm kind of exploring at the moment rather than imposing is I don't want to get in the way, but equally I know that actually just listening to someone's frustrations or things that they're worried about will be incredibly supportive to them. So I don't know what actually is going to be the most useful thing for for those people out there.
I think it might be worth having a chat with them and chatting with their the learning and development team.
Yeah.
I used to be Samaritan volunteer co-director of the Samaritans. If you ever want to set up something like a listening group, I'd be happy to come in for free and to talk to you about how you could set up something like that. I'd be happy to do. I'd be happy to do that. So please do drop me a line afterward. It would be such a pleasure to be able to do that. I can't believe the time. I wonder, can I ask you all a question? Would you be happy for us to go on for 10 minutes so that we can wrap up and close? Would everyone be happy with that? Have you all got 10 minutes? I know you're all incredibly busy wherever you are in the world. And we know lawyers' time. Darren, you can bill me for the extra 10 minutes. I'm teasing. Wow, for me, this has been really rich. Dr. David, thank you so much. I know you've got to head off to another meeting. Thank you so much for your time and for being here. Yeah, I just wonder if anyone's got any last comments that they wanted. Aha, they're sharing the love. Any last comments they wanted? That's so cool to share. But and Rob, you passed on a document that I guess people might want to download now. Can you just tell us in a word or two what the document that you shared was?
Yeah, happy to, Rash. In fact, because of the time constraint, I've put a couple of pieces into the chat for people to be tickled by. And love, just really trying to just push out the love here. But what I found really engaging and inspiring about the paper, and like someone mentioned earlier, I think Stuart started the thought, certainly in me, about the amount of information. It's sometimes really difficult to make sense of that and sort the wheat from the chaff. And I guess you dive in, you take your chances, and you just pray that you'll be able to make a discerning choice between the two. What I like about the Cranfield paper is that it's realistic, it's practicable, it's a real focus, further to the last comment, on channeling, if we can, our support for those that are at the front line. I'm not saying that any of us aren't, we've got a couple of doctors here, but for those of us in proximity to the hospitals, to the ad hoc hospitals, to whether it's Guy's or any other hospital that's doing that most valuable work of all, saving lives, it is about acknowledging that sometimes it's about knowing how we can best get out of the way and not cause further disruption, how we can support what's going on. So, you know, as a silent partner, just keeping things ticking over, whether it's, you know, getting people to the hospital, shopping for local people who can't, being available for a chat or a discussion, removing the noise if you can, doing it without anyone else knowing, but just doing it because it's the right thing to do and your heart leads you in that direction. We heard from Dr. Martin earlier. Just to let you know, Dr. Martin, I did something very similar for our team online yesterday. I did a 3-song quiz, and members of the team were standing up in their spaces and dancing, and the connection between the 3 songs was love. I played George Benson's Love Times Love, and they loved it. So it absolutely resonates with me when you said that. And I think in reaching for those kinds of activities, in the Cranfield paper, it talks about that. It talks about how we can identify ways of minimizing the disruption and supporting those at the front line who are delivering those essential services, as was commented by the previous speaker who joined us a bit later after the start. Thank you for that, by the way. A real focus on that is what this paper does for me. So thanks for that, Rash.
Really, really, really good points there, Rob. That thing about how we can get out of the way and also how we can step in and how we can...
Yeah, and Sharon's point. Sharon made a point. It's not just about the clinicians and the kind of Sharon may want to come in and say this herself in the far wider...
It's in the chat, isn't it? It's in the chat, yeah.
But it's also about the social doctors. You know, some of us are community healers. You know, I work as a trustee with Relate. Sharon is on a board at a hospital. You know, it's about our proximity to those spaces in helping out as well. So absolutely, strength and love and power to the clinicians. They're at the very front line. But it's also about those of us that are doctors of the heart, emotional intelligence, cultural intelligence, those of us that carry some of an understanding about those things and how we can reach out and connect hearts for the greater good. That's what this time is, I think, what this time is all about.
So well said, Rob. Sharon, did you want to pick up on that point and articulate it? Because I think I'm also very keen for us next time to pick up on this, around this stuff about the people who are healers in all shapes, form, doctors, nurses, therapists, you know, light workers, you name it. Sharon, did you want to put word to that yourself?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, so sorry, I'm on video. You've got my photo because I'm surrounded by boxes, so that's not a good look right now. Yeah, so yeah, I just thought that was an important point to make, because we admire those in the medical profession who are really putting their lives at risk, you know, to save many. But there are other people in the community and in our own sphere that are doing some great work to really soothe and calm and encourage. And I just think it's important for us to understand that a lot of that is going on. There's probably as much as that going on around the world. And one thing we've said to people in the trust is that, how can we help? You know, how can we make sure that we're not getting in the way, but it's about ensuring that we're being useful. So they've said to us, can you just dial in on calls, make notes, and give us a quick, you know, some bullet points? That would make life so much easier. So while we're not there physically, we can be practical in our support to them, for example.
And on that note, actually, I'm just thinking about Rye's note. I know when the hat she wears is for the National Day of Staff Networks. Rye, one of the things I think that's worth thinking about there is what are the staff networks doing, whether they could get involved in that. Sharon, I wonder if, could you say just a sentence for those people in organisations? Is there anything that you feel that staff networks could do? Because I just think there's an opportunity at this moment for them to also play a part. I know it's a segue point, but just whilst you're on the line there.
Yeah, I think this is the time to remind networks, hey, this is what you've been doing. Yeah, this is for you to step up and show your organization how you really add value. Because if you think about what networks do, they're dispersed all over the place, but they remain connected. Mm-hmm. And I've been pushing out the messages that this is business as usual for you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've been the ones that have been reaching out to those who've been disaffected, who are disillusioned, who are nervous, who are anxious, and you've been that calming voice. So just carry on doing what you're doing, and you know, encouraging them really, and you know, kind of calming them down, to, because it can be quite overwhelming. But I see our role as really supporting them and helping them to understand, just do what you do. Right. Yeah, you do a great job, just carry on doing that. So
right, so I wonder if we get time just before we close, maybe if you could post that link for the National Day for staff networks and so on, that might well be useful as well. Oh, wow, what an amazing call, what amazing people we've got here in this space. I had no idea who would show up or how people would show up, but I'm just really touched by today and by the sharing from some of the things in terms of from the practical to what we should all be doing and things that are going on in our own lives and in our communities. Thanks so much for sharing that, Sharon. Food for thought, stuff around how society might need to look afterwards. I wonder, I'm going to invite everybody, just before we close, if there's one word that you would like to offer us moving forward, could you offer us one word? But I'm also going to ask you to offer us one word. So one word that you'd like to offer everybody, and one word that you're taking away from this call. One word you would like to offer everybody, and one thing that you would like to, you know, and one word that you would take away from this call. The one thing I want to say, just whilst you're all thinking about that, oh, wonderful, people are putting it in the sound, in the spoken thing, is that picking up on your point, Rob. For me, there's something dear to my heart, is what are the things that we can do? You know, we're always thinking about what we can't do. I'm very mindful. There's some things that some people are really brilliant at doing, very hands-on. That's not my thing. But something like this, I can easily do, or speaking to somebody over the phone or coordinating something. So for me, there's something about what are the things that we can actually do and getting on with and doing that. Picked up on your point, Dr. Martin, around that. Are people are typing in the things that they're taking away? So we've got togetherness and compassion, share, patience with oneself and others, test and testimony. Anything else wants to share, either verbally or in that sound box in that. Yeah, I'm feeling, you know what? I'm feeling really, really optimistic. Leigh, I want to just turn to you. I wonder, would you be happy to wrap us up in just maybe a 2-minute silent, quiet, peaceful meditation? I wonder if you might just be happy to just take us through a lovely, just a short blessing or wish for us to carry forward in our lives.
Sorry, hi. I just wanted to say thank you so much for everybody for the richness and the generosity and the openness also in sharing, and invite us all just to take a moment. Something that we often do in our women's groups where we support others is just to take a moment and place your hand on your heart. And I think in the spirit of this kind of conversation that Rasheed is always so generous in providing, we all, I can see that all of us are such givers. We want to help, we want to share, we want to give. And just a moment to connect to yourself and also to take a bit of energy for yourself. It's not easy for people who are generous of spirit or kind and caring to always accept. And I think to make sure that you stay recharged and that you stay nourished, so that we can keep on giving and supporting those who we see need so much help and support. So just in a few moments of silence, just really taking that in and feeling that if it's not easy to accept that, to feel that you're recharging yourself so that you can keep on giving. And also just acknowledging that you are seen and heard and you are appreciated. So thank you for being able to give to others and being able to notice others, and that we are much stronger than we believe we are. And also just taking a moment to dedicate this to all of those invisible givers who we may not even know about, the cleaners and the sweepers, the people that are not right at the front line, but are also doing all those little interdependent jobs. How brave they are in their own ways. All those in the shopping markets, in the supermarkets that are serving us every day and sustaining us. Just really acknowledging that too. And just really wishing everybody, may you be happy and healthy and well in mind, body and spirit. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was just a magical way to wrap up this call. And thank you so much for that. Such a gift. Thank you. I feel as though you brought the retreats to us here. I just want to dedicate this whole recording to everybody who's hurting, everybody who perhaps is in a place where they're trying to heal. I want to dedicate to anybody who's sadly lost their lives or their loved ones. Everybody who's going through hurt or trauma, either linked to this or through anything else right now, just in solidarity and in terms of support. I just want to thank you all for the magical work you're doing. I'm going to work out how to download this. I'm going to put it on my YouTube channel. Also, I'll make if anyone wants the link, let me know. So the link could be shared. If anyone wants that link, I will, but I'll put it on my YouTube channel over the next day or so, or even maybe over the next few hours. I can't thank you enough for being here, and I'm going to be here. I'm going to be running this for the next however many weeks. Certainly the next few weeks I'm free at 12 noon, and I put that time. If you're able to join, it would be lovely if you're able to join again, or if there's anyone else you know benefit. Right, thank you so much for that point. I think I want the next theme particularly to be with the healers and in the broader sense in mind, so there's something for them. But if there's anything else I can do, please do drop me a line. I just want to thank everybody. And if there's anything I can do for any of you, and then in projects that you're working on, please do let me know. And just thank you so much for the magic that you all do. I'm so grateful and compassion. Thank you for checking in. And I'm going to end this recording. And I just want to thank you so much for being the magical people you are. Thank you. Music.